Hey you there, quick question. What do all of these characters have in common? Right, they're all battle shonen protagonists. But if you look just a bit closer, you'll notice another pattern that's a little more tricky to spot. That's right, they're all teenagers. Now in a vacuum, this doesn't seem like a huge problem, because it isn't. But when you put all of these series side by side, with this in mind, they start to feel a little more the same. Of course, they're shonen, which translates directly to young gentlemen, so it makes sense that they're teens. But I can't help feel like some of these series could really differentiate themselves by changing the age of their main characters. And it probably doesn't help that I'm getting older and I relate to these settings less and less. I'm an adult now. I do adult things like working and going to college and donating my plasma. So when I sat down to watch Kaiju No. 8, the first thing I noticed was that banger of a soundtrack. My personal favorite track is the one that goes na, 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 na. I swear, if this was playing, I could be watching a slice of bread not fall, and I'd still be hyped. But the second thing I noticed was that the protagonist was 32 years old. You can tell because of the 9 hairs on his chin, which is so much, trust me guys. In typical shonen fashion, Kafka spent most of his life dreaming to become a defense force officer to help fight against the kaiju. But after years of trying over and over, he continued to fail. Eventually, he lost his drive and gave up on his dream, all while watching his old peers succeed in the way he'd always wanted to. He continues to work his standard kaiju cleanup job now, living a decidedly normal life. He's comfortable, he has a spacious apartment, a stable income, a respectable job. So why? Why isn't that enough? When we're young, we tend to dream big. We're taught to. We have our whole life ahead of us. But once we get older and our time begins to slip away, often our aspirations do as well. But usually those dreams never go away. We always think about what could have been, and it's a maddening thought. That's just how Kafka feels. I mean, I'm no brain doctor, but I think he's sad. So when he walks into work one day with a new young coworker who shares the same dream that Kafka had, he's challenged. Was he always destined to be like this? Is it too late for him to change? That's when Kafka hears some life-changing news from his new coworker, who we'll talk about in a bit. They moved the age requirement for the defense force to 33, which if you've been taking notes, is 1 year older than he is. Now he's given the choice. He can take the easy route to remain unfulfilled in his life, or take one final shot at his lifelong dream. Finally, he decides that he doesn't want to quit. He chooses to go out for the defense force one last time. It's a really sweet scene and I love it so much because it's so cute and... Oh crap, it's a hollow. Kaiju. They try to fight the kaiju off, blah blah blah, they narrowly escape the kaiju, blah blah blah. Kafka does this, and turns into a Kaiju No. 8. It's pretty basic shonen stuff from there. The first episode does a lot for Kafka as a character, and I think his development is so effective here because of his age. So why does the title say almost? Well, Kafka's characterization starts off unique and moving and all that awesome stuff. He quickly devolves into your stereotypical battle shonen protagonist, doing stuff like screaming all the time, being awful at most things at first. Him getting 0% power was a bit much, and blurting things out during the induction ceremony. These are all things I would expect Naruto to do, but when it's coming from a 32-year-old man, it's a little more cringe. It's just a bit disappointing when you have this unique perspective for this type of series, but it isn't fully utilized. There are just some moments in this series that make it a bit underwhelming. But then the music starts swelling and suddenly... Shoot, dude, this is the greatest show I've ever seen. 10 out of 10. In the same vein as Solo Leveling, Kaiju No. 8 is pure hype. So if you came here for a good story, here, watch one of these instead. But who cares about the plot when people are going pew pew pew, slice, smash, smash? I sure don't. My major complaints with the show appear when people talk. I think the characters in this show could really benefit from being mute, but they aren't, so now I gotta talk about them. Like much of the show, it replicates a lot of the archetypes that exist in other battle shonen. Kikuro is the titular hot-headed blonde tsundere. I don't actually know what that word means, but I heard people calling her that, so if it means annoying girl that no one likes, I think they hit the nail on the head. She's probably the character that suffers most from being able to speak. When she's fighting, she's pretty cool, but the fact that I know who she is as a person makes me... I can't stand her. Reno Ichikawa is probably the most interesting character so far, personally. I feel like a lot of people would write him off as boring, but I think those people are just jealous because they're stupid. He often likes to keep to himself, but when he does interact with others, he always has something important and helpful to say. He's just a really wholesome dude. And I like that he relies on his intelligence and adaptability to excel in combat rather than just having a big number and bodysuit. It's a nice change of pace from the rest of everyone else in the show. Your Forger. She's the fake wife to Lloyd Forger. Oh, wait, I had the wrong script, my bad. Oops. Mina Ashido. Here we go. While Kafka was loafing around, Mina was busy being the actual main character of the show. She actually followed through with her and Kafka's plan to join the defense force, and eventually made her way up to captain, which is a pretty cool job because now she gets to use a comically large handheld cannon to pretty much carry every fight. Like most of the other characters here, not a lot of depth, but pretty stinking cool. But then we have the real best character of the show, Vice Captain Soshira Hoshino. If you've seen any of these shows before, you already know him, but I'll introduce him anyway just because he carries the show. The best way to describe Hoshino is that he's Levi Ackerman, but with a sense of humor. This guy pretty much just let Kafka join the force because he thought he was funny. However, when he's on the battlefield, he goes full Levi Ackerman, which isn't actually that much because short. He's literally the only character in the defense force to use swords. And at some point, this just has to be on purpose. But like, okay, he's not original by any means, but I don't care, and neither should you. Look at this. While the characters are mostly skin deep, most of them are charming enough to keep me invested. Except for you. And that's kind of how the whole show is. I don't expect Kaiju No. 8 to give me some Attack on Titan level twist that blows my mind. But that's okay, because that show already exists. You can watch it right now. Not everything needs to do that, and I can still appreciate the blockbuster kaiju action that the show delivers. On top of that, I feel like the show was just about as perfect of a first season as we could ask for. Because anime are usually adapted from manga, it's oftentimes hard to find a perfect endpoint for a season of anime. So I appreciate how the final episode set up the next season with a whole new dynamic that might keep the show fresh. I'm not gonna spoil it because it's really the only plot twist after the first episode, but it's great stuff. And while I do wish that Kafka acted a little bit more adult-like, I was still massively impressed by how much the first episode developed his leap of faith and reinvigoration of his dream. To me, that part of the show is still really special. And even once that aspect was more or less gone, I still thought it was pretty cool when he punched stuff really hard. And the success of this series gives me hope that other mangaka might take some inspiration and have more unique characters and lead roles. So yeah, Kaiju No. 8 pretty much slap. Here's another video to watch. Man, I sure hope this bread doesn't fall.